The first 16 weeks in the life of your puppy are critical. This period is also called the critical developmental or the critical socialization period. What we do in this time literally has a life-defining impact, so it's highly important that we get it right. If we isolate our dogs until the balance of the vaccination period, which is often advised by vets, we run the risk of seriously causing irreversible consequences. The first 16 weeks is all about appropriate socialization, which effectively means learning how to interact or relate to living things. So in these first 16 weeks, we need to identify all the areas or all the living things that we'd ideally like our dogs to be comfortable and confident with as an adult dog, and prioritize controlled exposure to all of these things as best we can in this period of time. So how do we do this? Effectively, the whole question of animals is incredibly open-ended, and the more diversity we can put into the mix in the early stages of puppy development, the better and more grounded the adult dog would be. So just thinking a little bit outside the box and taking your dog to as many different locations with as many different animals as possible just greatly enhances the benefit of your dog to be able to do more and more as an adult. So the trick here is to be creative, and above all else remembering that we need to keep the puppy safe in all the environments that we're trying to expose it to lots of different living things. But it also means that we need to target humans as well, and it's not just adults, it's one adult, two adults, 5, 10, lots of people movement. It's also dealing with children, because dogs that haven't been brought up around children can potentially have an issue. So getting the puppies exposed to lots of different people types and children in lots of different settings, again, helps to further strengthen their ability to deal with stresses and distractions as they get older. So what about other dogs? At what point in time do we take the puppies out, and how much do we allow them to socialize? Well, effectively from 8 weeks of age, we really need to get them out and about. But what we really need to do is to start to be mindful of how we let them interact with other dogs. The more the interaction becomes hectic and uncontrolled, they start to develop that is a foundation for how to react to other dogs as an adult. And the problem with too much excitability as a normal everyday today way to respond to other dogs is that they start to believe that is the main way to behave. So structured play is incredibly important, and free play is important too, but it can't be the be all and end all. And we need to start to get the dogs or the puppy to understand at a very early age that interaction with other dogs has got control. Just like our children, we want them to interact with other kids, but we need to have some kind of structure in place to make sure that there's a degree of learning how to relate to each other progressively. So the natural progression is then the whole discussion about off-leash parks. Now, from my understanding, socialization is all about learning how to relate to something that's living within constraints. There are effectively very little constraints in an off-leash park. So if we start taking our puppies during the critical developmental period where they're vulnerable, we take them to an off-leash park, we're not only getting them to realize that impulsive behavior is the default behavior. And what I mean by that is if a puppy is intimidated, it'll back away from something, and if it's excited, it'll run towards it. Those are the complete opposite of socialization. So we need to get the puppy in and around lots of other dogs in a constructive sense. And in an off-leash park, we're effectively stimulating or developing the natural behaviors in that dog, good, bad, or indifferent. So we're not actually modifying them. The other thing is we start to use off-leash parks as a babysitting environment for our puppies, where we interact with the humans that are there, and all the dogs tend to amuse themselves. And that, unfortunately, has very little carryover benefit to teaching the dogs how to deal with real life issues and real life problems with a structured outcome and a structured solution. The other real danger with off-leash parks is the potential for dog fights. Now, because we're allowing dogs to act impulsively, we're allowing them to do the first thing that pops into their head. And dogs can be friends for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden they might fight over a stick or a ball, and then it's too late. We've effectively got a problem. And all the other dogs around it might also be traumatized by that situation. So there is very little benefit in an off-leash park environment, and there are many, many downstream problems that can eventuate. It's not all doom and gloom. We still need to allow our puppies to play, but what we need to do is to overlay a little bit of structure into the process so the puppies know when to stop and when to start. Just like with our children, we allow a certain degree of interaction and then we bring them back a little bit. Interaction in off-leash parks isn't a bad thing as long as we control what happens next. And this is why taking your dogs and your puppies on leash to a lot of different environments is a good thing. If we're really serious about it though, the whole concept of obedience and puppy training is important. So if we look at a dog obedience training center with a really good structured program, we'll know full well that all the training will be on lead, there'll be some off-leash progression, all the dogs, all the puppies will be vaccinated, and we'll be allowing the interaction between puppy to puppy to develop between lots of different breeds and under lots of different structure so that the puppies learn to interact in a constructive way and get a really good grounding for the whole socialization component. So looking into a good group environment is an important thing for your puppy to develop. And then the benefits of this are that we can actually progress through the younger levels, more progressively advanced, and eventually end up to completely off lead to have dogs that can do really high level things in high stress environments.